Hello YouTube! So a new patch has been out for about a day now on TFT. I just wanted to quickly go over some key takeaways. I've been playing all day pretty much. I haven't had a chance to play this set a lot, but I've been playing the last week quite a bit. Finally just hit master. We'll see where we'll go from there. But anyway, let's talk about this patch. So kind of the main things that we want to talk about here is that games should end quicker and you should see a bit less 5 costs. The reason for that is the player damage is just up from stage 4 onwards, right? In general, it costs more to go from level 8 to level 9. Level 9 is usually where people will go to roll down for 5 costs. So in general, you still want to play around your 4 costs. That's a big takeaway. And yeah, so there's a lot of things we're going to talk about here in general, but let's talk about takeaways from the patch. So even though it is harder to get to level 9, level 10, it's still going to probably be your win call in a lot of games. Irelia is doing amazing right now. If you have this comp here, it's winning 18% of the time. It's kind of crazy. It's not super high play rate. The nice thing about these items is that Ashe can hold them for you, so you can roll down at 8, stabilize very hard, play around Ashe, and then move to Irelia eventually. Ashe, her stealth is still doing fine. This is my favorite way to play the game when I can, is to play around Ashe, but I don't slam Last Whisper unless I know I'm going to play around specifically Ashe. I'll slam Guinsoo's IE, and then I'll wait from there because I might play Irelia. If I'm high rolling enough, I will get... If I know I'm high rolling or I have an econ augment that I know I'll get to 9 or 10, then I'd rather play around Irelia and Kai'Sa Galio. So the main thing I want to talk about is mostly Kai'Sa Galio because it's a very easy comp to play and it's one of the strongest in the game to this day. Let's look at the Explorer. Xayah is one of the best 5 costs in the game. Just having a Xayah on your board, you average a 3.8, which is insane. A Xayah 2 brings you down to 2.6. That's actually insane. Obviously, getting Xayah 2 is not easy. Getting any 5 cost 2 star is not easy, but this is actually an insane average placement. I do think you want to play around Kai'Sa Xayah in every game you can. Similarly to how I said I like to play around Irelia, I think a very, very good way is to play around either Kai'Sa or Ashe. Now, what you want to do here is you're going to notice that they share a lot of common items, mostly IE Last Whisper, and it's some of their best items, even the Delta, but Kai'Sa is very bad with Rage Blade, whereas Ashe really needs Rage Blade. That's kind of the hard part to play around, because Rage Blade is such a nice slam. Everyone loves slamming it early. The early game fights usually take a while. You get to ramp it up. You take some units. But it's bad on Kai'Sa. That being said, it is good on Xayah. It's not her best item, but it's by no means bad. Right, it's only a +3 delta. That's fine. It's her most used, probably because people slammed a Guinsoo's wanting to flex between Ashe and Kai'Sa. So one thing I do recommend is just slamming Guinsoo's if you can, or just IE Last Whisper and save the last slot. And then when you get to level 8, you send it. You send it at level 8. It's probably the best way to play this game. There's so many 4 costs that you could just play around. But if you hit a Kai'Sa 2, you're going to play around Kai'Sa. If you hit an Ashe 2, you're going to play around Ashe, right? If you do have a Guinsoo's and you're playing around Kai'Sa 2, if you hit a Xayah, you give it to her instead. If not, you can just play it on like a Bard until you find Xayah and then try to give Kai'Sa other items, like the ones we talked about earlier with IE, Last Whisper. Could be GS as your last one, Runon's is fine as well. But it's kind of hard to do that because when you slam a Guinsoo's early, you don't really want to play it on a Bard. You probably have a Bard one as well. So it's not the best, but it's possible. A lot of people, when they slam Guinsoo's, they think Kai'Sa's off the table. That's not necessarily true. I just wouldn't give it to Kai'Sa, or give it to Kai'Sa for now, because you'll probably hit Kai'Sa 2 way earlier than you hit Xayah 2. And play around any removers. If you get, the Malphite encounter where he knocks items off, just give Kai'Sa your Guinsoo's. If you took the magnetic remover, golden remover, or you just found one randomly, give your Kai'Sa Guinsoo's until you find that Xayah. Then when you find Xayah, you could move it and give your Kai'Sa a better item down the line. So the main thing I did want to talk about here is that Xayah is kind of the queen of the patch, I still think. You hit a Xayah 2, you're probably going to win the game or do extremely well. That being said, a lot of people like to play around this Dragon Lord Kai'Sa Xayah comp, and I just think it's worse and it's more expensive and it's just harder to get to. When you look at all her deltas, Lee Sin is positive, then a positive. Rakan might not be positive because he's Rakan, but let's find him. Janna positive, I think I already said that. Rakan's good, yeah, but Rakan's Rakan. So a lot of people try to play these Dragon Lord comp. It's not nearly as good. It's just, look, you play a Riven. Yeah, she's a low cost unit, 0.42. You play Riven, Galio, Silas Aatrox, that gives you 4 Bruiser. You're gonna play 4 trick shot as well. Sivir is gonna give you the attack speed KO, plus Sivir is just easy to play around in general. So I do think if you're going to play Kai'Sa, what I would recommend is going for this version almost all the time. Just doing something like this. It's cheaper. If to me, I've actually pivoted to the Dragon Lord version quite a bit because, you know, you find a Lee Sin 2, you find Diana 2, and it feels like they should be better than like a shitty Sivir or like a shitty fucking or a shitty Aatrox, but these just work too well, right? You hit 9 and you add Udyr, getting a free item on either your Xayah or your Udyr or your Kai'Sa. It's just so nice. The synergies work well. 4 Bruiser Silas is just a beast on his own. If you have some AP items, you could throw it on him. Galio's fine. And it's just a nice comp to play around. The Dragon Lord, I feel like the Dragon Lord version is a little bit of a bait, but it is still good. That being said, a cheaper board that is placing higher is just always a good thing to play around, right? Okay, another thing I wanted to talk about is slamming blue buff or Shojin early game. Sometimes you're going to feel like you have to do it just be based on your items. You know, you upgrade a Zyra. She's so nice to play around. Xayah 2, you'll win streak with a Shojin. Or even you somehow got 2 tiers. You're not sure what to do with them and it feels just bad not doing it. You know, maybe you took slamming and you got a tier out of that. A tier on the out of your original drops. It feels kind of bad not playing around it. It's quite a bit better this patch. So I don't know how, but I swear I've been like forced to slam blue buff like 3 times today. The nice thing is that Kog'Maw carries it pretty well. Riven actually uses it very well. You don't even have to commit to an AP line. Both of those champs just got buffed. Zoe just got buffed. She uses it pretty well as well. And then playing, let's say you're... So I do think that slamming AP items feels better this patch than last patch. Last patch it felt almost troll playing around AP at all. This patch it's a bit better just because things have kind of squished together. I still do think, as we just talked about, Xayah is queen, Ashe is really good. But you know, you play Lilia. Let's say you slammed the blue buff early, you played Lilia and you played the 4 Invokers version. You know, she's doing quite well, averaging a 3.6, winning out in 20% of her games. That's pretty good. Or, you know, on your level 8 roll down, you hit Syndra 2 instead. So you play 7 Faded Syndra. I think these are the 2 best options if you slam blue buff early. She's averaging a 4, pretty good. Probably not going to win out with this comp, but it's not a bad option. I've been forced to like swap into Syndra and I'll come 4th, 3rd, and you know, that's fine. You can't always play for 1st. Before, if just slamming AP items in general felt terrible, I don't think that's the case anymore. I do like playing Lilia, especially with 4 Invoker. Ashe and Mumu works, and then you add an Ashe. Alright, so you're playing Annie, Kog'Maw, Ashe. Kog'Maw and Ashe work together. Azir can take some items later. Nautilus, Kog'Maw, Lilia will give you Mythic. You're going to play a Mumu anyway, which pairs with Nautilus. It's a very easy to play comp. It was good last patch, and I just think it feels even better this patch because, you know, playing a level 8 comp just feels strong in general, and when you have the option to play around a Lilia and an Ashe, you just feel so flexible in the early game. You can slam blue buff, you can slam Rage Blade, you slam your frontline items, and you get to level 8 and you try to play around these 2 units. It feels very good together. Okay, no like specific tips here, but I just want to do a quick rundown of which augments are doing really good, just in case you run into these. Midnight Siphon at 4-2, it's really strong. At 2-1, it's very strong. If you get this option, you already have a Yorick, I would just play around it. It's like the easiest top 4 of your life. You barely have to think about it. Sleight of Hand is something I've been taking a lot. Just getting the Thieves Gloves in general is nice, but the fact that your Thieves Gloves are now buffed, there's a lot of units that use Thieves Gloves as well. In the Kai'Sa Xayah comp we talked about earlier, you probably want to slam this on your Silas or your Udyr. They use the Sleight of Hand so well. Lucky Ricochet, again, you're going to be playing the 4 Trick Shot comp, the Kai'Sa Xayah one we talked about earlier. Little Buddies, same comp. You play so many 1 costs and 2 costs in that comp that if you ever hit Little Buddies, I would just play Kai'Sa Xayah every time. All of these are doing extremely well. Combat Caster is my favorite combat augment in general. When I see it, I literally just click it because it's easy to play around. Ethereal Blade Shen, doing pretty well. I also think this is a pretty easy top 4 comp. It's kind of hard to win out with, but it's very easy to play. Band of Thieves 1, if I ever see this, I always take it. Again, Thieves Gloves is just an easy item to play around because so many later units use it well, like Silas, like Udyr. And then it's a free TG as a silver augment is extremely good. Even taking this at 4-2, it has a 4.28, which usually is not the case when it comes to like these items, getting items late game. You usually want more like team-wide combat augments, but just the fact that Thieves Gloves is good in this set, I think. There's a lot of units that use it quite well. So yeah, nothing in like particular I want to talk about, but these are just the augments that if you see, you likely want to take. Shopping Spree is the easiest, is one of the best augments in the game. The way I play around it is mostly sometimes I'll roll just a bit at 6 to make sure I'm stable if I'm wanting to keep a win streak or if I'm losing too much. But most of the time you're just trying to save your rolls for 8, go to 8, and probably play that Ashe Lilia comp. With a bunch of rolls, it'll be very common that you 2-star Ashe, you 2-star Lilia, and then you just won't lose forever. And yeah, that's extremely easy to play around. So these are the augments that are doing very well this patch that I recommend you playing around. Okay, the last thing I want to talk about is the new items. There's new Ornn items, there's new support items. Just gonna look at the stats and talk about which ones seem to be good and which ones are troll. Okay, Talisman of Ascension, extremely good on Silas, on Gnar. Specifically, it says Annie's doing well too, sure. But if I got this early, like it's an Ornn encounter or you just took Portable Forge, I would pivot. I would try to specifically play around Silas most of the time. You can play around Gnar, but I'm not a big reroller myself. You give this item to Silas, you give him, you know, Spark and Adaptive or something. This guy goes infinite, I swear. It's extremely good on Silas. It's just overall 3.8. It's doing really well. Another new one that's doing well is this Suspicious, what is it, Trench Coat? Yeah. You give this to Udyr, it just doesn't make sense. He splits into 3 Udyrs, he like tanks up and turns into a rock, whatever. He makes the fights go on forever and just annoys the living hell out of the enemy team. It is so strong. If you get Suspicious Trench Coat, give it to, you know, someone early that has like 3 items just to be like annoying. Late game, give it to Udyr. You'll be surprised how good it is. It's extremely good. Pretty much every other new item, not that great. This one's not bad. And he's using it extremely well. I had an Annie 1 with this item and I swear she was unkillable. It's pretty good. But besides that, you know, I'm sure there are some builds for these new ones that are doing extremely well, but in general, they're not doing well. Vamp Scepter is averaging a 5. You're trolling. Prowler's Claw averaging a 4.9. RFC is an item that, you know, I expected, you know, they got rid of RFC. Why would they bring it back? And then I literally thought about it before this data even came out. There's not really an RFC abuser in this set the way that there were in older sets like the Mordekaisers and Nilas and whatnot. So yeah, none of these other ones are doing particularly well. But if you do get the option of Suspicious Trenchcoat or in Talisman of Arise, I would play around them. They feel extremely well on the champions they're good on. And there was also a few support items. When you get offered Moonstone or newer, just take it. It doesn't matter what comp you're playing. If your front line is remotely good, they will turn into becoming unkillable. It feels extremely nice to have. Besides that, almost all the old support items are doing better. That doesn't necessarily mean they are better. You know, new items might take a second to figure out, but Moonstone is just doing fine no matter what. The other ones might be a little more difficult to play around, but yeah, I would still just recommend pretty much the same support items you were taking last patch, with Virtue being good, Z0 being good, Zeke's being really good. And then if you get offered Moonstone, which is the newer one, I would take it every single time. So that's just my quick thoughts on the patch. Quick game plans, which augments to take, which items to take, which units to play around. I hope you learned something. If there's anything you want to talk about, make sure to leave a question in the comment section below. I would be happy to make a video or just answer in the comments themselves. I appreciate a like, comment, and subscription. Stay beautiful, my friends, and let's climb.